So, I'm going to be explaining how the court justice system works, and I studied political science for 3 years. I wanted to go into law and be a lawyer at one point. I don't want to be a lawyer, I still want to, see what I could do within law, maybe go into policy or something, maybe get a master's in public policy. But we're going to explain how the justice system works and as to why we shouldn't be using emotional based arguments as to, you know, what the trial is going to be and how people end up either getting wrongfully convicted or people end up getting away with something that, they did. Believe it or not, the law is there to protect us from getting wrongfully convicted, and it's there so that, you're innocent until proven guilty. And unless if you're convicted, you're innocent until proven guilty, and the system is there so that the majority of the mob of people don't get to determine whether or not you're guilty or you're innocent. Because think of it like this: we may feel as if the person in the article that we're reading about is guilty, but truthfully, we don't really know who these people are. We just only get information from the news or from our friends or from, going around. We don't really know who these people are, and it's not up to us to say whether or not this person is guilty or not guilty. And in fact, media coverage on a case actually hurts it more than it does help it. The court isn't going to care about your opinion, and the court isn't going to care about your feelings. And I'm not trying to be an asshole here, I'm just being honest. So this is how it works. The first trial is the most important trial. You do not want to waste a judge's time with emotional pleas. You would want to lay out the evidence of X, Y, Z as to how, this person is guilty or how this person wasn't guilty. This is the trial where you lay out all of the evidence, all of the facts, and where you have all of these witnesses. Now we're going to get to the second trial. Okay, so typically, if a person feels as if the trial court, had done something wrong within the procedure of the case, not if there's any new evidence or anything, but if there is something done wrong in the procedure, like, I'll end up having to link some sources as to the procedure of a court case. You can look this up online, but in law, everything is basically very, very formal. Like, for example, if you're not read your Miranda rights, you can end up getting out of an arrest that the cop may have, tried to arrest you for. If you aren't read your Miranda rights and are interrogated into giving information that you didn't want to give, you can get out of the arrest. The court is very procedural, and it's very nitpicky in the technicalities of what goes on in there. The second trial wouldn't care about new evidence. The second trial would care about if the first trial case did not go, if they didn't do their job properly. It's basically like the supervisor court, and it would examine the procedures of how that court handled that case and it would either change the verdict based on the court handling of the case, or it would keep it the same. So let's just say if someone was found innocent but were actually guilty, because we thought they were guilty, but they were found innocent in what this court ruled. If the court did everything correct within the procedure, the second trial would not be granted, or the second trial would look over what the court did. It wouldn't look over the new evidence. It wouldn't want witnesses or the families there. It would look over what the court did, and it would rule whether or not the court actually followed the procedures. And if it, ended up being ruled in the same favor, if the circuit court ended up ruling that the trial court did its procedure correctly, that verdict would still stand. And then, you can end up rising all the way up to it depends on whether or not this is a state case or a federal case. People should describe this, more in detail. There is a Supreme Court in the state. I wouldn't know whether or not if the cop being tried in Minnesota would have to face the state court or the federal court. But if we're going through state court, it would lead all the way up to the state Supreme Court. And if the state Supreme Court ended up viewing that, the trial court or the circuit court did its job in the procedure, it would again just review the procedure, and the verdict would either be based on if the court did its job. So let's just say the trial court didn't do its job, but the circuit court agreed on the verdict of the trial court and said, okay, the trial court did, their job correctly. And then the person appealed for another trial at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court reviewed both the trial court and the circuit court and decided no, then it would change the verdict. And then we can go to the federal level, and it would basically be the same thing again. That root trial is what's the most important because it's what lays out the evidence and the facts. What the court is only interested in, if you get a second trial or a second hearing, is if that lower court did its job correctly. Unless if you could find evidence that lower court didn't do its job correctly, as in following the procedures, you're not going to get a second case. Even if you were wrongfully convicted, or even if you got away with a crime that you did, the upper courts aren't going to care, because they're only caring if the system did its job correctly. So, meaning if, the trial does happen, and trials can take a very long time to happen, you better get your shit together. You better have all of the facts laid out. No emotional arguments, no weird demonstrative bullshit that isn't necessary. You just need to get the facts straight. And the court would choose what side has the most evidence, the most facts, and the side that sticks to the point. And the other courts would only look at that court's procedure. unless if you found a technical difficulty in the first trial's procedure, chances are you can't overturn a verdict. I hope that this helps you, and I hope that people do end up looking up how a court case works, because, you know, as upsetting as it is, if we want to get justice in the right way, we can't just demand immediate justice. And as much as we'd want to, we'll put yourself in the shoes of the person that is being demanded of, you know, being convicted early. Think about it like this. If you were in a situation where you're being tried for something, regardless of whether or not you did it, imagine everyone out there, people from all over the world, people who don't even know you, people who don't know your family, people who don't know you yourself as a person. Imagine that angry mob of people automatically assuming that, yeah, this person is guilty, this person is guilty, this person is guilty. Imagine putting yourself in a situation where you're trying to prove that you're not guilty, and imagine trying to prove to those masses of people who do not know you, who are lynching you, who are harassing you wherever you go, who are, harassing you at your house, and who are harassing your friends and your family. And that's why we have this justice system. It is not okay to harass someone who didn't get a trial yet. It is not fair to impose our judgment on someone who we don't know, regardless of who that is. And okay, that video evidence did show the cop shooting George Floyd. I saw it. I saw that he wasn't resisting arrest. And I understand the anger that people feel. I feel that anger too. However, that doesn't give people the right to lynch all of those cops. And it's hard, but if we want actual justice, what we're doing may hurt the case more than it actually may get that guilty verdict, because we're too into our emotions to realize how the justice system works and to, just lay out the facts. That cop should get convicted. And, cops can hold the guilty party in custody in jail for a while. They could be held in jail for up to 3 years, waiting for their trial. Yeah, unless if they pay bail. The bail typically tends to be high. For Chauvin, it's about a few $1 million. That doesn't mean that he's free after paying that bail. It means that he's free until that trial date. He is being held in that jail until that trial date. And people shouldn't jump to conclusions right away, because unless if, you want to live in a society where you can easily just be locked up and thrown in a prison right away without even saying your part of the story, we have to treat everyone equally. And it sucks, but unless if you want a society that automatically assumes that you're guilty, we need the system. And, I hope that I'm able to educate you as to how it works. I hope that people do end up doing their research as to how a court case moves and how a court case works, because I ended up figuring this out during con law too, as to how an appeal trial works. An appeal trial works, but not based on new evidence that's found. An appeal trial works based on whether or not the initial trial court followed the procedures. So chances are, unless if you find a technical difficulty in the trial court and, that cop got away with what they did, an appeals case is going to be useless. So what I'm trying to say here is that you should focus on the facts, and whoever the lawyer is, I hope that they focus on the facts, they focus on the arguments, and they are able to articulate it clearly and not do an emotional fuck show like they've done with Trayvon Martin. You can look up Trayvon Martin's case and you'll see why he was found guilty. The lawyer was very inappropriate as to portraying how George Zimmerman was guilty. I don't know what they were thinking with getting that mannequin out and doing that physical demonstration. It looked very sexually inappropriate in the manners of the court. And oh boy, I feel so sorry for Trayvon Martin and his family that got fucked over because of that lawyer. I hope that they remove his license to practice law. And I hope that, whoever is representing George Floyd or the people, they're not a public defender. This is why, if you're being accused of a crime, you gotta pay a lot of money for a great defense attorney. Defense attorneys tend to make a lot of money if they win the case. So, if you're paying a lawyer, they're motivated to win the case. And it's also the part of corruption as to why the person with the most money tends to win the case. And it sucks, but this is how it works. And it's stressful, but people should really look into how their system works if they want to either change it and if they want to dismantle it.